We're going to be looking at Chapter 13, and Chapter 13, the topic is web promotion, and it covers really kind of a wide gambit of topics. In fact, let's take a look at what those topics are here. Look at search engines, not only how they work, but how to best use them, which ones are out there, some considerations, and then other things that you do to help promote your websites. And then they talk about using a tag, brand new tag called the Iframe element. And the interesting thing is if you guys have done embedding of your YouTube videos into your pages, which is what I suggested that you do for your video stuff, you probably use the iframe element already, and we'll talk about how that operates. But the first topic is search engines. And I don't know if this link that they have on this page here is still accurate, but at the time of the printing of this book, which is a number of years ago now, well, it says copyright 2019, so you would think it'd be kind of current. They were saying that the percentage of search traffic, I mean, it's a kind of a no-brainer, right? Most of us use Google, all right, and that's the number one search engine. It has been for a long time. Of course, there's Bing and Yahoo. Does anybody use either one of those? Right? Yeah, not really, right? It's more accidental usually than, it's like, you know, like if you hit something in Windows 10 and it brings up Bing, you know, accidentally, that's like probably how they get to that 7%. That's just all accident. I do know that like when Bing first came out, there was like a certain group of people that would jump to it and do searches. But the funny thing is Google is not the original search engine. It wasn't the first one out there. And that's a little bit of a mind blower. When I was getting into the field, the search engines that we would use, and here's the curious part, is I wonder if they're still out there. So I'm actually going to bring up a browser and see. You know, let's find out, right? For example, we would use Excite.com, and I hope it doesn't bring up an adult site or something.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right. But no, Excite is still there, and Excite was one of the first websites, and it was really more than just a search engine. It was a search engine and a portal all at the same time. And what was neat about Excite is it allowed you to customize the stuff that you would put on your page. So their thinking was that when people sign into the web, you would make Excite your home page, and then you put all the stuff you want to connect to all the time on your home page. And there's a search engine. How cool is that, right? And it really, frankly, it really surprises me that it's still out there, right? But I'm talking like mid-90s. This was the thing. Excite was a really big search engine. And it also was kind of a combination of raw search engine and you know, curated content all at the same time, which is kind of an interesting concept right there. In the old days, Yahoo was actually really, really important. Really, really important. But Yahoo had a little trick to it that a lot of people don't realize, and I'll talk about that in a second. Another one that we used to use in the old days was this one. Assumits.com. Let's see if that one's still up. Oh, isn't that interesting? So Alta Vista, I guess they got bought out by Yahoo. But that was a big one too. Here's another one that we used to use in the old days. And out of all the ones that I'm showing you, like, you know, like mid-90s search engines, this one was probably my favorite, so I'm curious to see if it's still up. Ah, it's still up. Hotbot. Here's what I liked about this search engine. In terms of raw text search without any algorithms placed on top of it, this was the thing. I could often find stuff with Hotbot that I could not find with other search engines. So I don't know how it operates now. Another one that I ended up switching to over the years, so this is maybe more like late 90s, I switched to this one, Dogpile, and I see this, I know this one's still operational. And what was neat about this one, they don't say it anymore, but they used to have this little blurb on their page that called them a meta search engine, which meant that this search engine searched all the major ones automatically and then conglomerated the results. So it would search, back then, Yahoo, Google, Alta Vista, Hotbot, and a couple of others, and it would combine all the search results here. And I used to like this one a lot too, just because it did that little trick. And I see it's still up and running. One of the few search engines that's actually kind of new is this one, and I forgot to type the .com, that's actually got a little bit of legs. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this one at all. I see you're like nodding on it. So the people that are in the know know that this is the browser, or excuse me, the search engine to go to if you don't want your searches to be tracked. So DuckDuckGo is the privacy search engine. They do not track what you do. Now, what kind of results I get, I don't use it often enough to really know.
Get more than actual.
Yeah, I think it's kind of subjective, but I think that they probably share the code base that a couple of the other search engines do, and there's a little bit of a trick to this, folks, is the thing I just mentioned. Of course, Google is the big search engine, but when you do a Google search, if you are signed into your browser, which most of us do, like you have a Gmail account, and you bring up Google, and your account is automatically up on the screen, they are tracking your searches. More than that, they also have some fancy tools. Like in the old days, when they brought in voice search, I don't know if you guys remember this, but when they first brought it in, you would just say, okay, Google, right? And then the search engine would go, okay, I'm searching. Whatever you're saying, I'm typing it in. And it's been proven now, after the fact, that even though you don't have that turned on, they're still listening to you. They are still listening to you. And I always do, this is kind of an interesting test, okay? So I'm going to go, I usually go to this website to do it. So I usually go to the BBC News website, because I know that they pull in their ad feeds tied to the Google search results. And I'm really curious to see. Sure, whatever. I'm saying okay so they can spam me, but I always look to see like what ads pop up on the screen on this site, and I'm waiting for it to load yet. Jeez. Okay. Where's the ads? Come on. See, here's like one of the times I'm asking for ads, It's like, please put the ads on the screen. There we go. Oh, there we go. There we go. All right. So weren't we just talking about shopping for clothes online?
How does it call Donald Trump?
Well, that's an article. That's actually a news article. But it fascinates me. Like, let's go ahead and click through to the article. Not that we really care what the article says. I kind of don't care. I'm more concerned with what the ads are. Interesting. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been talking about a topic in class. We bring up a website, and that topic is the topic of the ads. I didn't type it in either. It is some kind of freaky stuff, folks. And you know what? All the big players, Facebook, Google, Apple, Microsoft, they've all admitted to not only listening in, but recording your stuff as well. Yeah, more so off of this. And here's the little hacker secret. There are these websites where people can go to. Hackers know about these sites, and I'm not really going to promote them because I don't want to really promote their activities. But where you can go to, and you can find devices to tap into and just listen in and watch. Why do people put tape over their cameras? Why do they like hardware turn off their microphones and stuff? Because they're paranoid, and they're right to be paranoid, right? All right, so these big companies often tell us that the reason that they do it is to make our search experience more of what we need it to be for ourselves. I mean, why would they put up, ads for, lawn care products when really I want to look at software? So that's kind of interesting considerations. Yeah, and see, this is the whole thing right here. Your data shouldn't be for sale. So not only is Google using it for their own purposes, and this is what Facebook got busted on a while back with Cambridge Analytica, they were taking your data and selling it to third parties, who then in turn were selling it to others. The value of your information is huge. And it's a scary, scary thing. The Europeans have stepped forward and passed really aggressive legislation now to limit people like Google you know, Yahoo, Bing, Microsoft, etc. From being able to use your data, sell it to a third party without your consent, right? But everybody opts in because they want to use the service for free, right? Everybody wants to use YouTube, so they all opt in. And furthermore, allow you, more importantly, to actually completely delete your data from all their servers. So if you wanted to delete your account and delete all your history and all your stuff, you're allowed to. Facebook now has this too. However, if you're a savvy web person, you know that the digital footprints still remain in the archives and in the backups, even though you've opted out. So if you're really concerned about what you're doing online, going into like incognito mode is not enough, folks. You should also use privacy search engines like this. If you're extra paranoid, you better get yourself a VPN service on top of it all. And that's really the kind of stuff that you need to be aware of. What I always do, and I'm not going to really take the time to do it in this class, is, but I've done this exercise in other classes, and you might want to try it yourself, is take all the different search engines that we're talking about, and, you know, go ahead and bring up, you know, Yahoo, you know, I should have typed .com, I'm just trying to get there as fast as possible, and Bing.com, you know, and Google just automatically, if you're in their browser, it automatically brings it up anyhow. And if you're searching for something, and I'm talking about like not something generic, right? I'm talking about something really particular. So like my classic example is like I'm looking for a car part. Like I have some older vintage cars, and sometimes I need like a very specific part for a very specific model of car with a certain type of engine, and it's diesel on top of it all. And, you know, so I have to type in like, you know, 1993 Volkswagen diesel TDI, you know, pick a part from the car, really unique, and do a search to try to find it. And then try that in all the different search engines and compare the results. I think you'll find it really eye-opening that they give you very different results in many cases. However, in some cases, they give you very, very similar results. And it's really interesting because here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. Yahoo, in the old days, was really not a search engine at all. You know, and I question whether it is right now either. But there used to be this organization, and I think it is now shut down. But it was called this. Yeah, see, it's all shut down. But the organization was called dmoz.org. And dmoz.org, if you would log into that, what it was a human-edited directory of the internet, not one that is created the way that Google creates theirs. What Google does is they send out pieces of software that go to every website they know of, visits every page, and follows every link. And then whatever page they end up on, it does the same thing. Visits every page and follows every link, and then it creates a database. It reads the page in, stores it in their database, and that way when you do a search, it will look up whatever thing you're looking for in their database, which they've crawled, right? So the software, you know, they're called robot software or crawler software, and they go out there and they just mechanically crawl through the internet and what we call indexing, because they're putting it in a database, sorting it and preparing it so that when you type in your search term, it pops up like that, right? Now, the fascinating part about that is DMOZ was different because instead of some piece of software doing that, it was a human-edited directory. So I had this guy that I knew in the past that worked in IT, and he was a neighbor of mine, and I was like out mowing the lawn once, and he walked by and struck up a conversation. He's like, "Hey, you teaching anything?" And we got into this thing, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm teaching an operating systems class right now. It's kind of cool." And he's like, "Oh, wow, you got to go to my DMOZ operating systems page. I'm the curator now." I'm like, "What? What is DMOZ?" And he goes, "What do you mean you don't know what DMOZ is?" You know, and it turns out that it basically, if you wanted to get listed on this site, you didn't just, you know, like with Google, if you want your new website to be listed in their search engine, you can actually send them a link and say, "Hey, can you put me in your search engine?" Right, and they'll gladly add it because they want your search results. But there, you had to be reviewed by the editors. The editors would go to your site and look at it and go, "You know what, this deserves to be here, so we're going to list it." But here's why it was really important. That site was really important because at the time, if you wanted to do a search, all the search engines started their crawls by going to DMOZ first. And so I always told people, like, one of the key secret weapons I used to use in the past to get people's websites up way at the top of the search engine rankings was to create a DMOZ listing. Now, there still are human edited directories out there, and I really am sad to see DMOZ go. In fact, I guess I could probably just generic search it and see if what comes up. Okay, look, you got a new URL maybe. Hey, all right, it's still there. Now, yeah, welcome, fantastic. Oh, but notice, it's the archive, right? Now this interface, this is a much revamped, more modern looking interface, but if you guys remember the Yahoo of old, you'd go to DMOZ and it was the same exact website with the DMOZ logo at the top. So all Yahoo did is just use the DMOZ directory to drive all their search traffic. The fascinating thing that happened over time though in the 90s, there was this company called, I think they were called Overture, and I forget who bought them out. I think a company called Inktomi in Japan bought them out. And what happened is they started buying up all the search engines. And so a lot of the search engines, Bing, Yahoo, Dogpile, a lot of the ones I was showing, really were pulling all their search information off of the same database, just with different algorithms to process it. Google, conversely, actually creates their own database. And Google does a lot of really weird stuff with their search traffic. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. But I think that's really fascinating to know that there's all these different search engines and they give you different kinds of results. There's even search engines out there that are really custom qualified for doing specific types of searches. Even Google has like academic search, for example. So if you're looking for like searching on academic work, they have a separate search engine for that. And a lot of academics don't even realize it, right? So kind of interesting. Talking about the popular ones. So notice how I said robot, spider, crawler. That's how they create that. But they have these pieces of software go out every single day and do these crawls. Every single day. Right. I think I already talked about all this. A program that follows the hyperlinks, walks through the website, chronicles everything, and then look at the stuff that they're looking for when those engines go through. It says they look at the title, the meta tag keywords and descriptions, text in the headlines, other text on the page, and really, folks, that's the big driver of search engine content, is actual words on the page. So whenever you do like a website project for somebody and it's really graphic heavy, if there's no words on the page, guess what? It's not going to index in Google. Got to have words on the page for it to really index. Also looks at all the hyperlinks. It also does things like looking at the alt tags and images. And the real importance for people working on what we call search engine optimization is to understand that with HTML5, we moved into this world of what we call the semantic web, where the tags are kind of describing what the content is. And if you follow that sort of an approach, so you put like headings over sections and paragraphs contain the content, and you have kind of logical breakdown of your content, it makes it much easier for Google to index it. So if your heading talks about the Green Bay Packers and the paragraph that follows does, well, it knows what to look for and it finds it pretty easily if it's well organized. If it's not, if it's kind of a mishmash, or you're not even putting your text inside of a tag like you should, it doesn't index as well. Now, a lot of people prefer that their websites do not get indexed, and this is really kind of bizarre. Think about this. All the stuff that we look at on Blackboard for this course, Google can't see that. They can't Google Blackboard, Gateway, Ties Web Class, Unit 12, Homework Answer, and find it. They're not going to find that, right? I think it's kind of interesting. And that's another interesting aspect of search engines. They say, and this is an estimate now, that there's a surface web and then what we call the deep web, right? And the surface web, meaning the web that can be searched with a search engine, is less than 5% of the whole internet. Think about that. So you're saying, I can only search 5% of the internet? Yep. Why? Well, think about Blackboard. When you go to Blackboard, you want to see anything? You got to log in. Otherwise, what are you seeing? The login page. That's less than 1/1000th of 1% of Blackboard, right? And that so many websites require a login before you can search. So none of that stuff is searchable from the search engine. So the deep web is not a bad or evil thing. It's just a part of the web that you can't see unless you have a login or specific access. Or for example, like we have like some of our server resources here are only accessible if you use VPN first. So you got to be on Gateway's network to see it. But even then, it can't be indexed. Here's an interesting thing. The stuff that you guys put up on Apollo, it can be indexed. All they need is one link to the Apollo web server and to one page, and they'll start finding everything. It's interesting. You know, one thing that just popped into my head is just going back to this slide. Wait, Google, Bing, and Yahoo. What the heck is Baidu? I've never even heard of it. Should we check it out? Yeah, we should. And then I think you guys will have hopefully a little bit of a revelation here. And you'll get it right away. What is Baidu? Baidu is China's search engine. A lot of people don't know this, but Google, in most of the major search engines, are not allowed to operate in China. They are blocked. You can't search Chinese websites. People inside of China cannot use Google. Why? Yeah, that's a really good question.
Because they don't want any freedom of the press.
Yeah, that's what it is right there. Bingo. They don't want the people in China getting all the fake news that we get on. You know, they don't want the, you know, like what's the hot one now with, you know, the lady screaming and the cat, the white cat, you know, the memes. Oh, you guys don't even know what I'm talking about. That's probably fine. But I think it's interesting though. But in China, this is like the go-to because this is the only one you can use. So of course it's got 10% of the search traffic. Somebody just says mostly those spicy memes. That's right. Very, very good. Thank you, Ethan. Yeah, they don't want people seeing what's going on in the outside world. So as free and open as they are with commerce, right? They're happy to sell us stuff and build our products. The last thing they want is the people that live there to understand what they're not getting. You know, and you know, at the same time, maybe it's not a bad thing because you know what else they're not getting? Pornography, right? Stupid Facebook ads, silly memes, all sorts of stuff. But at the same time, they're blocking them from seeing what's really happening in the outside world. I don't know how they can maintain that, but it is a quarter of the world's population, folks, that's in that situation. Here's a scarier thing. If you guys ever travel to China, I've heard from people that have done it, depending on where you visit, so there's little caveats. But in areas where they have issues politically and sociologically. So for example, if you were going to visit Tibet, right, where Tibet has always wanted to be a free state and a lot of people lobby for it. If you go visit Tibet and you cross the border, they take your phone and they load an app on it to monitor everything on your phone. Otherwise, you're not crossing the border. And what are you going to do? Leave the phone at the airport? Isn't that pretty? That's some scary stuff. So you ever travel to China, get a burner. Don't take your real phone with you. That's really scary, right? Because they don't do that to us here. Or at least we think they don't. I mean, really, isn't like Google or Amazon or whoever's listening into us, aren't they really kind of doing the same thing? Every time you load up an app that's free, what's the cost of free? It's not just the ads. You ever read the permissions that you give Facebook when you load Facebook on your phone? That's why I don't load their app on the phone. I just do it through the browser. They have more rights on your phone than you do. They can do stuff on your phone that you can't do. And you agreed to it. You're saying you can read my emails, you can check my contacts, you can contact my contacts, you can look at my photos, you can delete content on my phone, you can add content. It's crazy if you actually read it. And if you really read it, you would really think twice about actually having the app loaded. Through a browser, it's a little bit different. But you know what? It's so intrusive. Kind of a scary thing. But this is Baidu, the Chinese search engine. Important to know about at the very least. All right. Talked about all this stuff. Right? They talk about how to use a search engine. I assume you guys are okay with that, right? You know how to search. You know, the funny thing is, you know, I always think back to the old days. If you were sitting with a group of friends or something, and you have a debate about something, it's like, no way, the Packers beat the Raiders in '62 or something like that. It's like, well, you got the global brain here. You just look it up and say, no, dude, it's, you know, it's this. You know, so all those kind of things are off the table. Nobody has to retain any knowledge anymore. It seems you just like kind of Google it, and it's okay. I always tell students this too, and we're in the classroom. And I'll throw out a question, for example, and I'll say, hey, what's the big Chinese search engine? And everybody will just sit there. You got a phone, a tablet, a laptop, and a desktop sitting right there. I mean, hop up on Google really quick, and I mean, what would you do if I wasn't sitting there? If you had that question, you would look it up. It's okay to look it up. And here's the other thing. Why is this? Okay, this is important for web developers, obviously, because when you create a website, you want people to find your website. We're really looking at strategies for being found. But at the same time, there's also a strategy for the way you work. In IT, folks, you always, if you don't know how to answer something, look it up. My God. Are you going to wait till next week to ask me? I mean, I'm not kidding, right? If you're sitting in the classroom and I bring something up and you're not sure what I just said, it's like, what's EDI? You know, type it in, what's EDI? And it'll tell you. And it could give you 10 different answers, and one of them's the right one. But you got to be in that mindset. And you know what? Programmers, IT people that are troubleshooting all the time, that's what they do all day long. It's not like they just know it all. They look it up. Sometimes we do know it all. I mean, if you do something enough, you can become expert at it. Right? And then maybe you'll make your YouTube video and put it out there. But chances are, if you don't know how to do it, somebody else has done it. And there's no embarrassment. I can't tell you how many things, you know, like I fixed at home, for example, like if, you know, the washer breaks or something and you're troubleshooting it, you just hop up online, somebody's got a YouTube video about it. Oh, this is the part that's bad. And you know what? Here's how to replace it too. And you don't have to call like somebody in to do it. So that's an important thing. When you do submit a search form, I think this is kind of interesting, and that actually let's do this really quick, and let's just use Google. And when I type in a search term, give me something to search for. Pizza. All right. Not Pizza Hut, just pizza. All right. I'm searching for pizza. Notice that, you know, okay, so it brought in all these results. I really don't even care about what the results are, right? Because we know what pizza is. But what I'm more interested in is what it does up here. You guys see how I'm like highlighting that? You notice google.com, then it says search, question mark, Q, which stands for query, by the way, pizza. And then it does all this other stuff. It's encoding and blah, 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 blah. But isn't that interesting? It appears, whatever you typed appears in plain text in the URL. We talked about what that is. That's what we call a get in a form. That part of it, as soon as you hit send, it's going out over the internet in plain text. Now, Google is locked down, but the initial send is in plain text. What the result is a different thing. But it does go out there in plain text. I think that's kind of interesting how that works. Now, the problem with using search engines is search engines, for the most part, play favorites. They all have bills to pay, right? They have people that work on them. They have to, like, you know, get their hosting, their domain names, their whatever people they're paying. They got to pay those bills, and they have to do it somehow, and they do it by selling ads. So you look at any search result on any search engine, and I type in, and the first results I get, you know, it's an ad. It's an ad, right? And why do they pay to be there? Because if you're at what they say the top of the fold, right? If you're at the top part of the screen, it just pops right up. It is so much more likely that people are actually going to click on it. So people pay big money to have their stuff right up at the top. Marco's, Domino's, right? And then you start getting kind of localized results. It's always interesting to see what those results are. I mean, why is it pulling up stuff in Racine? It knows I'm in Racine. If I was in Chicago, it would pull up a different thing. It also knows, because I'm signed in, that I have certain preferences. Isn't that kind of interesting? So it'll go based off of like stuff, places I've gone before, places I've shopped at before. That's the kind of stuff that'll pop up. So I think it's very fascinating. If you sign out of your browser, and if you have the capability, if you guys know what VPN software is, and you can VPN to like England or somewhere else and do the same search and look at the search results. Search results are localized, personalized, ad-driven. It's really amazing how much of it is really kind of out of your control as to what comes back on your screen to get the thing that you really want to see. Fascinating. Whole field of study, honestly. Now, if you are trying to like make sure that you pop up to the top of those search engines, you gotta be really careful about the terminology that you put on the page. Text is really important. Having a graphical version of your business name, like a graphical logo that's just an image, is almost pointless. Yes, it looks nice, but somewhere on that page you better say Pizza Hut or Domino's. You better like put that in text on the page so the search engine will find it. Google also does a lot of things like, I think it was 3-4 years ago, maybe 5, that they developed a new paradigm where they said mobile first. They realized by then that a majority of web surfing was done on mobile devices, and if your website was not mobile compliant, it wouldn't get up to the top of the search engine. Still true. Why would they? Right? If most of the surfing is on a phone, most of the search is on the phone, why would they give you a desktop-only version of a site up at the top? They don't want to do that. Mobile first. Right. One thing that people do add is they add what they call meta tags inside their code. So this would go up in the head section of your document. And I'm going to tell you from personal experience, I've had mixed results with this. A lot of people think that this is the way you drive search traffic. My personal discovery from experience with like different stuff that I've done is it's the content on the page that matters. It's the quality of the content and the actual text on the page. Meta tags do help though, because you can actually put in a description and you can put in like a bunch of words and stuff that talk about what it is. So like if you have a business that sells pizza, you might have a meta tag name, description, and the content where the value is. You would say is, this is the best pizza in Racine. And that would help drive search traffic. It's kind of not always a great idea to omit this, but a lot of people will do something like this. So they'll just add it in, and it'll be at the top of all their pages. Interestingly, some search engines will also take these descriptions, and that's what pops up. You know, like we have a little description of a website in Google search results. Sometimes it pulls from this, if the text on the page is not good. And so that's kind of a catch-22. So it does give you a way to kind of do that. Now there are actually people out there that have entire careers doing this activity called search engine optimization. In other words, you're selling a product that everybody else sells. How are you going to get to the top of that list? You're going to work on some of the stuff that they're indicating here. So what are the keywords that really are important to your site? So if you're selling pizza, you probably want to say pizza, crust, sauce, cheese, pepperoni, sauce. You know, that's the thing, right? Pepsi or whatever else you're selling. Your title should be important, so the title tag actually is red. So if you're Domino's Pizza, you might want to say Domino's Pizza in the title. And if you're on the pizza page, you probably should say pizza up there too. Then we look at the stuff that's actually on the page. So the heading tags should have important keywords. The first few words of text on the page, like for example, you know, if I had like Joe's Auto Repair Shop, I would make sure that the first words on my page were Joe's Auto Repair Shop, and not like We like to work on cars, they're really cool, blah, 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 blah. We at the bottom, Joe's Repair Shop. Google will say, obviously that's not important. If it was important, you put it at the top. You know, so just really simple little techniques. Fascinating thing is when I was running one of my own businesses, I'd get phone calls all the time, cold calls, right? And it's like, hey, how'd you like to get your business to the top of the search results? And I'm like, I'm already there. I'm like, what? I'm like, here, type in the search term. Oh, wow, how'd you do that? You want a job? I'm not kidding, right? Because people would pay big money to get that to happen because they had no clue. So, all right, so provide text navigation links to page, use CSS for page layout, don't embed it into your document. Make sure that you have good alt tags on your images, that your hyperlinks, if you're using a text to replace the actual web address, that text is meaningful. Those are all things that help. Other thing that helps, why do I have you check the validator with your code? Because pages that have invalid code, Google says they don't know what they're doing. Out of here. Yeah. Follow good web design practices, be well organized, meaningful. Yes, absolutely. The other thing that Google does is over time is they know that when people are searching for things, what they're kind of searching for, they have all these algorithms that have figured it out. You know, if you have a quality website that people are really looking for, it will kind of naturally float to the top anyhow. But you still have to follow a lot of the best practices. One thing that people don't know about though is this, is that you can actually brute force get your site listed. You can go to Google, you can go to Yahoo and Bing, and there's, I don't know where it is exactly, you can probably Google it, or Bing it, or whatever, where to submit a URL to be added to Google. And you give them your homepage, and then they go through and they add it to this list, and then the next cycle where they run their robots or their spiders or whatever, they add that to the list of ones to start searching from, and then that gets indexed, and then it's added to the search engine. It used to be, in the old days, when you would do that process, it would take up to 3 months for your site to get listed in Google. 3 months. Now it's almost instantaneous, usually next day, if you're really looking for it. So follow that if you really want to add. Another thing that a lot of people do is they do advertising online to try to drive traffic. So why do people pay for those ads? Why do people try to monetize their YouTube videos? Because there's ways to make money. And the search engines, what they do is with those ads, if you click on their ad, often that's when the advertiser is paying. So they pay a little bit to get pushed up, but every time there's a click, that's what we call pay-per-click, right? If you get somebody to click on your ad, you get paid for it. I've known people, and actually I had a student once, not that long ago, that made a living off of creating websites with like lots of weird information on them. He would just like collect specs on computers and put them on web pages, just so he could put ads on the side and collect Google AdWords credits. He was making $5,000 a month from clicks. He had like 50 websites to manage though, right? So he had a whole bunch of websites, but he made a whole living off of it. How he paid his rent, how he paid to go to school. He said he used to work at like Jimmy John's or something, and then started doing that, and then he started making so much money, he was like, why do I don't even need a job. And better yet, he doesn't even have to do anything. He just has to make sure the websites stay up. Yeah,
So
there's.
then you also bought the server space, I'm guessing, too, or no?
Yeah, well, you do have to buy hosting to host your website. So that's your one bill. And you do have to build the websites, but you see like the strategy here. Now, the problem with this scheme though was this: there were a lot of people who would do that and load up ads on their sites, and then they would go through and click on the ads themselves. They would just have people that would sit in a room. Go to my website and click on every ad. Go to my website, click on every ad. And then Google started cracking down on that because there was a lot of bogus stuff happening. So Google has gotten wise to that, and they kind of watch. The other thing is this, I think an important one is this click-through rate. And it's so, for example, if your ad was shown 100 times and 20 people clicked on it, your click-through rate would be 20%. So Google looks at that stuff too. So if you pay for them, or if you pay to have your thing way up at the top, and then 20% of the people are clicking on the ad, that's pretty awesome. I'd say 5% would be awesome. But the way I look at the web, and maybe I'm a little more cynical on it, is if I go to a site that's really heavy on ads or clickbait, where they try to get you to click on like an article. Hey, this person like chopped off their head. Click here to read more. And really all it is to get you to their page to look at the ads and maybe click on the ad. That's what it's all about, folks. But they look at that stuff and they analyze it. But there's money to be made there. And how do people make money on YouTube? By people clicking on the ads in their videos. Or just even by the fact that people saw the ad and had to click the skip ad thing to get rid of it. But people make lots of money that way. What's really helpful if you do want your site to be crawled is to create actually what they call a site map page, and they have a little example here. Let's actually go to it. I haven't seen this in a while. But if you have a website and you create an auxiliary page to your site called the site map, and it's just a page that contains a link to everything on your website. Search engines often look for those too. So not a bad idea to create that and add it to your site. I find myself sometimes if I go to a really complex site and I can't find the thing I'm looking for, even by using their search or looking through their menus, sometimes I go to the sitemap page and I can find it that way. The other thing that you can do is you can actually create a XML file. It's a separate type of file that actually shows a hierarchy of all the pages on your site. And they have examples on the Google website if you're curious about that. I'm not so keen on this approach, but some people say it works. But, all right. One little interesting aspect is Google has this tool called Google Analytics, and they're not the only company that does this. But some services, there are some services out there where you can add a little snippet of JavaScript code to each one of your web pages. And Google is probably the most notable one. And when you do that, every time somebody visits your page, a little piece of data is sent back to Google or whoever, and then you can go to a website and take a look at all the different statistics of a website. So who visited, what time of day, what was their URL, what operating system were they using, what browser were they using, was it on a phone, was it on a tablet, was it on a PC, what country were they in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What search words did they use to get to your website? Pretty fascinating. And people look at that. And by looking at those kind of statistics, you can actually kind of tunnel down and figure out where your traffic's coming from, what kind of people are visiting your site. You can also see things, for example, like what search word did they use, and when they got to your site, how long did they stay on your site before they left? That's kind of interesting. And you would be amazed. 95% of web traffic is there and gone in less than 5 seconds. So if you're not capturing them like this, if your pages will load up in 5 seconds, it's all telling you you're losing them immediately. Now, if you get them to stay for a few more minutes, you're much more likely to sell them your product or service. If you get them to stay there for like a half hour or an hour, they're really looking at stuff, that's a sale. But even for the people that stay on the site, let's say past a half hour, the click-through rate to purchase something if you're doing e-commerce is about 5%. So you really need to have a lot of web traffic to really sell stuff online. And what's interesting is there's all these tools that you can use. Google Analytics is probably the most popular one, but there are others. The other thing that a lot of people don't know is when you get a professional hosting service, there's analytics automatically built into the hosting because the web server keeps logs too. And you can tunnel through and see specific visitors, time of day, traffic amounts, and if I get a chance, maybe I'll show you an example from one of my websites. There are some services too that check to see how popular your thing is. And yes, if you ever put a website out there professionally, you're always concerned, right? Especially if you're doing it for a client, about getting it up there. How do I get myself up there in the search engine? Because if I don't appear on the first page of Google search results, chances are nobody's going to visit my site. That's pretty sad, right? Because for most search terms you're going to put in, you're going to get like 1 million hits these days. Anyhow, so that's kind of a whole thing. Now, here's the weird thing. why does everybody, I mean just about everybody, like if you're a business, why do you create a Facebook page? Why do you create a Twitter account or a Pinterest account or an Instagram or a whatever? Not just to be cool. The reason you do it is because it works. That's the important aspect of that. So really important thing that's happened, and why does everybody put that Facebook logo on their page? Heck, people post it in their businesses, you know. Visit us on Facebook, right? Because it's a technique really that I call casting a wide net. The more ways that you can have for people to find your website, the more apt they are to actually visit your website. So if you create a Facebook presence, people will go to your site as a result of it. That's fantastic. That's a sale made. It used to be that Facebook and a lot of social media would allow commercial people to do that for free. And then about 3-4 years ago, they got wise, and then all of a sudden, if you wanted to like make a posting that reached more than a certain number of people, you'd have to pay. Yeah, and that's still true now. So Facebook initially free, a lot of people bought into it, but now like, if you really want to push something on Facebook, you gotta pony up some money to do it, unfortunately. Yeah, lots of different mechanisms. But you know, the smart businesses, depending on what they do, will have lots of different ways to drive traffic to their sites. Lots of different ways. So, types of ways to drive traffic. So, QR codes. What's a QR code? Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed it, but it was on the Baidu site. They have a QR code. Right, that's a QR code. So you can get like special apps on your phone. Sometimes our photo apps do it automatically, and that's just all that is an encoded URL. So you just point at it, and then your browser will go right to it. Bring up an app, bring up a screen, whatever. That's one thing that people are doing. There's affiliate programs, so people will say like, hey, if I put your link on my site, will you put my link on your site? So people do that. You can do banner ads. I mean, all of these kind of fall into that category where people are kind of sharing information. But some people actually pay into services where stuff pops up. I was never a really big fan of that for any of my business sites, although I was tempted at times. So for example, if somebody searched, to come and buy coffee, right? If you were part of like these affiliate programs, what it would say is like, well, here's all my products, and then the right-hand column would be ads for other sites selling the same product. But you get paid for somebody clicking on it, right? And then your thing would be on their site, right? So I always had mixed feelings about that. I never thought it was cool to advertise somebody else's stuff. I thought that was kind of weird. The other thing that is kind of interesting is that one way to drive web traffic is actually through more traditional media. So, for example, you could actually do email lists. And you know what? Email marketing is a really big aspect of web development. So I have some of my former students that work for design houses where their entire job is creating email marketing campaigns and then web pages that match up. So like, why are those effective? It's the electronic equivalent of direct mail, right? So people will go to your website, they dig your website so much, they sign up for the email list, and then every month you send them, or every week you send them like email messages to promote something, or coupons, or sales, or whatever, and they do it voluntarily. Those are the people that want to shop with you. Why not, right? Very, very effective form of marketing. Traditional media ads, so you can put ads on TV, radio, newspaper, billboards, flyers, and say, visit our website, and give them a web address. And then any other little types of things you do, business cards, brochures, printed on the wall at your shop or whatever, all very cool. There's a QR code. Believe it or not, they're not like a big, weird, mysterious thing. You can actually go to certain websites, type in your URL, it generates a QR code for you, and you can throw it on your app, your screen, your product, and a lot of people do that. I don't know if these are as popular as they were a few years ago, but when they first came out, they seemed like they were really kind of a hot thing. All right. Let's move on to the last topic or so, and we're almost done. Let's talk about the iframe. This is kind of interesting. Back in the old days of the web, we would use this technology called frames. And for those of you that are not in the classroom, you're going to kind of miss out a little bit here because I am going to maybe run the board here. I could always turn my camera on. Actually, it's too late now. But you'd go visit a website, and a lot of websites look like this. So we got a square, we got a navigation area, and maybe something like this, right? Then you have maybe a footer or a sidebar, and usually this area, this area, this area, and this area would all stay the same, right? But the content area would be different. And so you'd navigate around the website, and you'd go from page to page to page, and most of the stuff you're loading doesn't really need to be reloaded. So somebody came up with this clever scheme in the old days when our bandwidth was really slow, that maybe instead of creating a web page that always had this repeating content, why don't we create this new thing called frames and a frame set, and so that each one of these things is actually a separate web page. And then when you click on a navigation link, we're only changing the stuff in the middle. That's a separate page. Everything else stays in place. Clever scheme. It was really kind of cool because that way the stuff on the page that didn't, on your screen that didn't need to change didn't, and then you're only loading only the data you need. So it's a lot more efficient. The problem is when search engines came in and you started doing a search and you found content that was on the content page and you go right to that page and you wouldn't have the navigation with it. Wow, that was really problematic. So what ended up happening with that technology, it was called frames and frame set is what we called it. It ended up going away really quickly. And the only environments where it worked okay was where you had a controlled point of entry where you'd have to log in and then you got dumped into the frame because then they knew you would get everything. Nobody really uses it anymore. And ironically, Microsoft realized that problem a long time ago and they came up with this technology called Iframe where we could kind of do the same thing. So we could take code like this and drop it into any web page, and then that web page would load just another web page inside the web page. And I'm going to demonstrate that in just a little bit. But that's the way that we do YouTube video embedding. So when you're adding YouTube videos to your page, you're really just loading their page into your page. You're not really loading a separate page. So that's kind of an interesting technology. It amazes me that it actually stuck around when the regular frames went away, but iframe stuck around. And weirder yet, it was a Microsoft technology. So we're going to come back and we're going to actually try this. So this is the example that I gave you in the media section on doing YouTube videos. And you guys know that if you go to YouTube and you choose to embed into your web page, they give you this code. You just copy paste it, put it in your HTML document, and boom, it's there. Same thing that you'd kind of do on YouTube or Facebook or whatnot. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to fire up Dreamweaver since we're on topic. And I'm just going to demonstrate a really quick iframe. It's really easy to do. And I know that we've done it with videos, but I'm going to demonstrate it with a web page instead. And then you can judge for yourself whether this is something you might actually use. There are some really clever ways to use this. So for example, if you create a static website, which is the kind of stuff we're building right now, and you build it for a client, and you want like a part of the page to list changing content, you can give your client access to one web page that they can edit and just feed that page into the website. Okay, somebody's using the account, huh? Let's sign out of that one. Okay, thank you. All right. All right, so I want to do a little bit of review here before I go futzing with anything. I want to kind of remember where I was at with this. So I'm going to load up. We were working back here, so it's been a while since I've really kind of updated this stuff, but I'm just going to go ahead and load this up in the browser. Right, so this is where we kind of left things, and what I'm really looking for is maybe a spot where I could inject another page And I don't think I really have a gallery page, so it looks like my media page. Oh, my gallery page is a dead link. All right. So why don't I go ahead, and you know what? Maybe I'll just do it on my, nah, that's not a good one. I'll just do it on my media page. It's probably going to be the easiest one to do it. So I'm going to try to add an iframe down here at the bottom. In essence, I already have that. So let's bring up the media page here in Dreamweaver. And then I'm just going to jump back over to that slide because I think this is copyable text. I'm hoping. So I don't have to type it. I guess not. All right. Maybe this one's copyable text. See, they're all images. Isn't that's mean. Because I can't copy paste it, you know. All right. So let's just go ahead and start typing it in. So I'm just going to go way to the bottom here. Below the last video, and you can see we already have examples there. But I'm going to add an iframe tag, and then the real key attribute in the iframe is where you're pulling your page from. So, for example, if I wanted to pull in, I don't know what's one of the, you know, if I wanted to pull in like Baidu, that's kind of a weird one to pull in, but I'm going to do that. I'm going to say Baidu.com. But if I'm pulling in an external website, I do have to have this in there too. And then I can also declare the size. So the size is going to be whatever I determine it to be. So I'm going to go with 600, and that's good to be in quotes, by the way. And then height, let's go 400. Let's see here. We'll copy some of the settings from above. Frame border, no. So there's no border around the thing. And actually we're going to say 0. See, allow, blah, 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 allow full screen. We're not going to worry about any of that. And then you close your iframe. Now if you do add any text in between the opening and closing elements, you would throw in something like your browser, gotta spell it right, does not support iframes. If you even bother, right? I'm going to tell you what all the modern browsers do, so it's almost kind of a moot point. But let's go ahead and save this, and let's go back over to the browser and do a refresh. And so now when I scroll down, okay, so there's our refresh, and there's Baidu. Now, interestingly about this, right, it's not quite fitting in there, so it's not like scrolled well, so I really should make it bigger. But if you think about this, you can do a lot more simplistic stuff than just pulling somebody else's website into your own. You could actually create a separate content page that has maybe a list of stuff in it, and just pull that in here. That would fit in. You wouldn't even be able to tell it's a different web page. Now you can ask yourself all sorts of questions as to why. The why is this. The why allows you to inject content in there that you don't control, that somebody else can edit, but still include on your website. So if, Brenda, if you were creating a page where you updated the price of, I don't know, Cupid dolls, I don't know, I'm just stretching here. And then I wanted to display it on my site, but you continuously update it. I don't want to have to go to your site every day and get the updates. You do the updates, it just automatically appear. That's kind of the why. With YouTube, by using an iframe, I don't have to load up a plugin to play a video. I'm just using YouTube's player. It's just playing right from their website. So I think that's kind of fascinating. Very simple example, pretty darn easy to do. So make sure that you try that. Now if you do your YouTube video on your site, you cover iframe and video at the same time. So that's kind of a two birds with one stone, but I just thought I'd demonstrate it so you can see how it operates. Kind of cool. And yes, you can get rid of the scroll bars too, but then you have to make sure it fits. All right, folks, that ends the Chapter 13 lecture. We got through it.